Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're really going deep, embarking on a journey into something that could genuinely change your financial future. We're talking about designing your own personal financial architecture. The goal, tax-free generational wealth and, well, real financial freedom. Just imagine, what if there were legal, ethical ways to, significantly cut your tax bill, multiply your money, and lock it in for generations? So that's our mission for this deep dive. We've dug through a lot of specialized sources to explore this whole concept of tax and wealth architecture. Our goal is to pull out the key strategies, maybe some surprising facts, and those critical distinctions. Really help you get genuinely well-informed, but without feeling totally overwhelmed. Think of it like getting the blueprint for your ultimate financial house.
Exactly, and that architecture analogy is actually spot on, isn't it? The sources really hammer home this idea of building a personalized structure, one that's tailored very specifically to your age, your business, family situation, your specific goals. It's kind of designing a custom home. There are foundational bits everyone needs, right? But as your wealth grows, you add more sophisticated tools, more features, like picking the fancy finishes. And that crucial starting point, the foundation for pretty much anyone serious about this, involves 5 key tax-free accounts. You've got the Roth IRA, the solo Roth, which often means a Roth 401k for the self-employed, the HSA or health savings account, the Coverdale for education, and what some sources call the Golden Roth. That last one usually describes a Roth IRA that's grown massively, often through really strategic private investments. These are your absolute building blocks.
Okay, let's dive into the core principles then. You mentioned this architecture, and a big concept right at the start is splitting your money into these 4 quadrants. Why is that separation so vital? What's the thinking behind, not just lumping it all together?
Yeah, that's fundamental. What's really fascinating is how strongly the sources insist on keeping your money in 4 distinct buckets or quadrants: personal, business, retirement, and then legacy or estate planning. The main reason is crucial. It's to stop what they graphically call the growing out. Just picture it. All your financial aids, personal cash, business funds, retirement savings, legacy plans, all tangled up. If one area takes a big hit, say your business struggles, you can pull everything else down with it. By keeping these quadrants separate, they can still interact. Sure, they can feed each other, but they keep their own legal and financial separation. This just makes the whole structure much more resilient, more protected, and ultimately way more powerful for building wealth. Each part does its job independently, but contributes to the whole.
Right. Okay, so resilience is key. Now, this is where it gets really interesting for me. Our sources lay out some pretty potent tools for actually creating and keeping that wealth. Can we walk through some of the standout ones, maybe starting with things that sound a bit unconventional, like 1202 structures?
Oh, absolutely. There's a whole toolbox described. One that jumps out, though maybe mentioned briefly, is the Peter Thiel structure. This generally involves putting, say, relatively small amounts of money, typically inside a Roth IRA, into high-growth private companies, like really early on. The whole point is to let that investment potentially explode in value over decades, totally tax-free within the Roth, turning a small initial stake into potentially vast sums tax-free. Then you have 1202 structures. Right. And this refers specifically to Section 1202 of the IRS code. It's about qualified small business stock, or QSBS. Our sources highlight this because it can allow for tax-free sales of qualified small businesses, potentially up to, get this, $50 million per person, tax-free.
Wow, 50 million tax-free. That's huge for an entrepreneur selling their business.
Exactly, a total game changer. But moving beyond just selling the business, the sources also talk about private family foundations. They use this fun example, the Portal Family Christmas Foundation, to show how these work. They can give you immediate tax benefits, right? Through charitable deductions now. And they also create long-term legacy benefits by funding charity work for generations. Often the way it works is you donate appreciated assets like stock or real estate to the foundation. You get a deduction for the fair market value, and you usually don't pay capital gains tax on that appreciation. And, maybe surprisingly, art strategies come up. They're presented as legitimate, totally green, meaning legal ways to manage wealth. So, for instance, donating appreciated art to a museum or your foundation could get you a nice tax deduction, support the arts, and again, avoid capital gains on the increased value.
Okay, art strategies. Interesting. What about more, maybe tangible assets?
Sure. They cover asset deductions too, particularly focusing on income-producing things like apartment buildings, rental properties. The idea here is straightforward but powerful. Strategically deduct all the associated expenses, depreciation, repairs, mortgage interest, you name it. This lowers your taxable income from the property, helping you, as they say, create, keep, and multiply your money more effectively. But maybe one of the most intriguing strategies, especially for families wanting to involve the kids early and cut taxes, is hiring your children legally.
Yes, I saw that. How does that actually work without, raising red flags?
Right, it needs to be done correctly. Basically, you can deduct their wages as a legitimate business expense from your business income.
Yeah.
And the child, if they're under 18 and working for a parent's sole proprietorship or partnership, not usually a corporation, can earn up to the standard deduction amount, currently around $15,500, completely tax-free. The absolute key, though, is proper documentation. They must do real work, actual verifiable tasks. And you need a solid story, a compelling narrative to handle any IRS scrutiny. You can't just pretend your 5-year-old is chief financial officers, right? Unless there's some kind of prodigy.
Right. So like actual marketing help or admin tasks.
Exactly. Or maybe even things like name, image, likeness, NIL deals, if that fits the business context. Real work, real records. Then, thinking longer term towards retirement, they mention pension plans. Specifically, certain types like defined benefit plans or cash balance plans, often used by small business owners or high-income professionals. These can allow folks to sock away and deduct 50% or even more of their current income into a retirement plan. It's a massive tax deferral and growth tool that's often missed. And finally, to manage wealth across generations and keep things smooth within the family, they bring up family banks. Now, these aren't FDIC banks. They're structures, often guided by detailed family constitutions, basically. Legal documents setting out rules for managing assets, making distributions, beneficiary responsibilities. They're specifically designed to prevent issues like, greed or that fear of missing out, FOMO, among heirs. It helps ensure wealth transfer is stable and fair over time.
That is quite a toolkit. So many creative strategies. But, some of these, like the art deductions or hiring kids, they sound like they could easily get complicated, maybe drift into gray areas if you're not super careful. How cautious do people really need to be, especially hearing that the IRS is getting, smarter with AI?
That's a perfect question. And honestly, it brings up probably the most critical point for anyone listening. Our sources are incredibly clear about the difference between green, gray, and black grid strategies. Green means it's strictly IRS compliant. Totally legal. These are the things you do with confidence. Gray, that's where interpretation comes in. The legality might depend heavily on your specific facts, requires really tight documentation. It pushes boundaries and definitely carries more risk. And black grid, that's just flat out illegal. That leads to serious penalties, big fines, even jail time. You absolutely stay away from that. And the sources give clear warnings, right? Like the classic example, trying to deduct your personal car as a full business expense when you barely use it for business and have zero records. That's heading towards trouble. Plus, it's not just about random audits anymore. We are explicitly warned. AI-driven IRS audits are coming, and they're specifically targeting entrepreneurs.
AI audits, so they'll be faster, more data-driven.
More efficient, more pervasive. They can spot patterns across vast amounts of data way faster than humans. It's also noted, interestingly, that the very wealthy often benefit from laws they might have had a hand in shaping through lobbying, so they operate comfortably in the green. Entrepreneurs, maybe less connected politically, sometimes misuse gray area strategies, maybe out of ignorance or poor advice, and end up crossing the line into illegal territory. The message couldn't be clearer. Stick to green. Protect yourself. Protect your legacy.
Okay, green is the way. Now, shifting focus slightly. The power of starting early. That seems like a massive theme here for building wealth across generations. What really stands out from the sources about building for kids and grandkids, not just ourselves?
Oh, this is where the long view gets really powerful and, frankly, kind of mind-blowing. The sources really spotlight the incredible impact of starting those tax-free accounts super early, like from birth. They give this amazing example, Baby George's Roth. The scenario is, contribute just $7,000 a year, assume an 11% average return, which is historically achievable, though not guaranteed. By age 60, Baby George's Roth is projected to hit, wait for it, $45 million.
$45 million from $7,000 a year.
$45 million. Tax-free growth and compounding over 6 decades, it's staggering. And the flip side, the cost of delay is just enormous. The calculations show that delaying setting up an account like that by just 1 year versus starting right away could cost millions over the long haul. Delaying 7 years, you might lose out on something like $23 million compared to starting at birth. The power of compounding, especially tax-free compounding starting young, it's almost impossible to overstate. But there's a really important sort of human warning attached to this too. While you're diligently building all this financial freedom, you also have to build a positive family legacy. The sources caution against creating businesses or structures that your kids end up seeing as, well, nightmares. Maybe because mom or dad was never around, or there's immense pressure, or just this heavy sense of obligation.
So it's not just about the money, it's about the relationship with the money and the family business.
Precisely. The goal should be using these tools to deduct smartly, build wealth, and create a positive, lasting legacy that the next generation actually values and wants to be part of, not something they resent. It's about building freedom and opportunity, not just a fortune that feels like a burden.
That makes a lot of sense. Freedom, not just fortune. Okay, another key theme seems to be control, especially with self-directed accounts and these specific money movement rules. How is this approach so different from what, say, a typical financial advisor might recommend? And what are these rules for making it work?
Control is absolutely central to this whole architecture. The sources really push for self-directed Roth IRAs, but with a huge caveat. You use custodians, not brokers or advisors in the traditional sense.
Custodians, not advisors.
Right.
What's the difference in practice?
A custodian just holds the assets and follows your instructions. They don't give advice, they don't pick investments for you, and crucially, they don't take a cut of your profits or charge fees based on assets under management in the same way. This means you keep full control. And depending on how the cash is held within the custodianship, it can have unlimited FDIC protection, which is also significant. It's totally different from the usual model where an advisor manages your portfolio and charges fees, often a percentage of your assets, which compounds over time. But with that control comes strict rules. You absolutely have to avoid what are called prohibited transactions. Things like doing deals directly between your IRA and yourself, your spouse, your kids, or businesses you control. That's considered self-dealing and can blow up the whole account. Also, certain types of investments are just off limits inside an IRA, like collectibles, think art, stamps, rugs, antiques. And for some complex investments, maybe like investing in an active business that generates what's called unrelated business taxable income, or UBTI for the IRA, you often need to use blocker LLCs.
Blocker LLCs.
Yeah, it's an LLC owned by the IRA that holds the investment. It blocks that UBTI from flowing directly to the IRA, which isn't supposed to pay that kind of tax, keeping everything compliant while still letting you access the investment within the Roth structure. Then you have these unique money movement rules. This is fascinating. The idea is to move money primarily with financial friends.
Okay, financial friends. What defines a financial friend in this context?
They define it as other tax-free investors. People who also have their own significant Roths or similar accounts who don't need your money for their basic liquidity. This implies they're investing for growth, not desperation. It also means if a deal goes south, it hurts them too, creating this inherent alignment. They're looking for genuine, mutually beneficial private deals where everyone wins. The sources point to examples like Mitt Romney reportedly growing his IRA to over $100 million, largely through private equity deals done within these rules. It suggests you can find opportunities, maybe smaller private deals that could potentially quadruple funds annually, or bigger deals accessed through these strategic networks of other tax-free investors. The absolute core idea here is cutting out the middlemen and their fees. They even reference the founder of Vanguard's view that traditional advisors can end up taking something like 70% of an investor's potential long-term gains through fees.
70%. Wow.
Yeah. So by taking direct control, using custodians, and partnering strategically with these financial friends, you aim to keep vastly more of your returns working for you, tax-free.
That concept of financial friends is really intriguing. It sounds like a very specific kind of network to build. Is that difficult? How do you even find people like that?
It definitely requires a different approach than, say, typical business networking. You're not pitching your product or service. You're looking for peers, other individuals who are already sophisticated investors using tax-advantaged accounts like Roths. They understand the structure, the rules, the potential. The friend part really emphasizes the mutual interest and trust. They aren't looking to just take your money. They're looking for great private investment opportunities where their tax-free money can grow alongside yours. It's about shared goals, shared understanding of this financial architecture. It likely takes time and effort, maybe joining specific investment groups or attending certain events, but the potential payoff from finding the right partners for these private deals could be immense.
Right, it's about alignment. Okay, we have covered so much ground today, really valuable stuff. For everyone listening, what are the absolute must-do action items, the key mindset shifts we should take away to actually start applying these principles?
Okay, boiling it down, the essentials from the sources. First, a guiding principle for how you operate. Assume good intent in others. Treat people like adults who can make their own decisions. And always, always be truthful in your financial dealings. Builds trust, builds integrity. Second, relentlessly build your financial IQ. The sources sort of imply your financial knowledge should grow alongside your bank balance. The more you understand, the better you can grow and protect it. Third, and this is huge, avoid delegating the critical financial decisions. Get help with executing tasks, sure, but you need to understand the strategy. You need to make the final calls. Don't just hand it over blindly. Fourth, research deeply. Go way beyond a quick Google search or just asking your regular CPA, who might not specialize in this stuff. Understand the real nuances, like how a backdoor Roth actually works if you're a high earner, or the specifics of QSBS. Fifth, actively network to find those financial friends we just talked about, those aligned tax-free investors who can unlock doors to private deals. Sixth, and this is non-negotiable, document everything meticulously and legally.
Especially with those AI audits looming, proper paperwork is your shield. And finally, maybe the most crucial mindset shift. Prioritize green strategies. Focus on what's clearly legal and compliant. That's how you win today and build a secure, lasting legacy without taking dangerous risks. These really are the pillars of building your financial architecture.
That was incredibly thorough, a really insightful look at building this financial architecture. It's so clear. It's not just about making money, but about being really smart, designing how it flows, protecting it, making sure it works for you and your family for the long haul.
Absolutely. And maybe a final thought to leave with everyone. If true financial freedom, if building that lasting generational legacy really boils down to understanding these rules, understanding the game, and proactively designing your financial life, what's one small, concrete, definitely green step you could take, maybe even this week, to start architecting your future?
A powerful question indeed, something definitely worth thinking about and acting on. We really hope this deep dive has armed you with some powerful insights and maybe some concrete ideas to start building your own financial architecture. Thanks so much for joining us on this exploration, and please continue your own deep dive into these incredibly important concepts.